Moving out to a quiet, rural area was supposed to be my fresh start. No more noisy neighbors, no more cramped driveways, no ridiculous HOA rules telling me what color I could paint my house. Just peace, quiet, and land as far as the eye could see. At least that was the plan. But I quickly learned that even in the middle of nowhere, HOA Karen somehow finds a way to make your life miserable. The first time I met her, she showed up unannounced on my property, clipboard in hand, with a tight scowl that looked like it had been permanently etched onto her face. I had just pulled into my driveway when she marched up to my truck, eyes burning with disapproval. "This road is for residents only," she snapped. "You can't just drive on it like it's your personal highway." I raised an eyebrow. "I live here. This is my driveway, my property, my land." Karen's lips pursed into a thin line. "All roads in this community fall under HOA jurisdiction," she said, tapping her clipboard. "You need to submit a request for access like everyone else." I let out a short laugh, thinking she had to be joking. This road was built by the previous owner. It's private property. The HOA has nothing to do with it. Karen's expression didn't budge. "That's not what our community guidelines state," she said coldly. "If you don't comply, we'll have to take further action." I waved her off, slamming my truck door behind me. Big mistake. The next morning I walked outside and immediately noticed something was off. My truck sat in the driveway, completely normal. But just a few feet down the road, something gleamed in the sunlight. I frowned, stepping closer. And then I froze. Metal spikes, jutting out of the gravel. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. Nope. Karen had installed spike strips on my own driveway. I stormed down the road, stopping just short of the twisted metal teeth. These weren't cheap plastic deterrents. They were professional-grade tire shredders, bolted straight into the dirt, the kind law enforcement might use to stop a high-speed chase. My blood boiled. This wasn't just petty HOA nonsense. This was straight-up illegal. I pulled out my phone, snapping multiple pictures from every angle, making sure I had undeniable proof of what she had done. If she thought she could get away with this, she had severely underestimated me. I spun around and marched straight to Karen's house, hammering on her door. A moment later, she opened it with a smug smile, sipping a cup of coffee like she had all the time in the world. "Can I help you?" she asked sweetly. "Are you out of your mind?" I shouted, pointing back at my driveway. "You put spike strips in front of my house." She took a slow sip of her coffee. "Well, I did warn you." I clenched my fists, trying not to explode on the spot. "It's criminal damage to property. Not to mention, it's completely unsafe. What if an emergency vehicle needed to get through?" Karen shrugged. "Rules are rules. If you have an issue, take it up with the HOA board." I let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, don't worry, I'll take it up with someone. Just not the board." Because what Karen didn't know, I had a lawyer on speed dial. Before I did anything else, I took more photos and videos of everything. The placement of the strips, the bolts in the ground. Even Karen's smug expression as she watched me document the damage, I made sure to capture every detail, including how the spike strips were bolted deep into the ground, meaning this wasn't some cheap prank. This was intentional sabotage. Then I made one phone call. "You're kidding me," my lawyer, Matt, said as I sent him the photos. "I wish I was. Can she actually get away with this?" Matt let out a sharp laugh. "Not a chance. This is property damage, reckless endangerment, and illegal road obstruction. You want me to handle it?" "Absolutely. Make her regret every second of it." The next day, Karen got a very official-looking letter delivered straight to her door, the kind that made it crystal clear this wasn't just an HOA issue. This was a lawsuit waiting to happen. By the time I got home, Karen was already outside, ripping the strips out of the dirt, grumbling under her breath. But she wasn't going to give up that easily, because Karen, she was just getting started. That night, I heard a loud bang from outside. I grabbed a flashlight and walked onto my porch. My truck was untouched, but as I shined the beam toward my driveway, my stomach dropped. The spike strips were back. Karen had reinstalled them. But this time, she had reinforced them with concrete. I couldn't believe my eyes. The sheer level of petty dedication was beyond anything I had expected. I took more photos, making sure to get every angle, before heading back inside and dialing Matt again. Matt, we have a problem. A long silence. Then, what now? He groaned. She put them back. But worse. There was another silence before Matt sighed heavily. All right, we're taking this to court. Get me every single detail. She just made this 10 times worse for herself. I grinned. Karen had just signed her own downfall. The next morning, I woke up to find Karen standing at the edge of my property, arms crossed, smug as ever. She wasn't even trying to hide this time. The spike strips were still concreted into my driveway, and she had the nerve to be waiting for my reaction. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my cool as I walked toward her. Karen, I don't know what fantasy world you live in, but this is private property. You can't just keep sabotaging my driveway. She smirked. I warned you before. Community rules apply to everyone. The board voted on this. We can't have outsiders cutting through our roads without permission. I shook my head, pulling out my phone. I don't need permission. This is my land. You and your little HOA club have no authority over it. And since you refuse to listen, maybe it's time someone bigger than me gets involved. Karen's smile faltered for the first time. Oh, and who exactly do you think is going to stop me? I grinned. You're about to find out. Within the hour, Matt was on site with a sheriff's deputy. Karen's smug expression vanished the moment the uniformed officer stepped out of his vehicle. This question mark. This was the beginning of the end for her. Karen had spent weeks treating my private driveway like it was her personal war zone. She had tried to block me from using my own land. She had installed spike strips twice. She had ignored legal warnings. And now, she was about to learn what happens when you mess with the law. The moment the sheriff's deputy stepped out of his vehicle, Karen's smug expression vanished. She had been so sure she was untouchable, so sure her HOA clipboard was more powerful than actual law enforcement. But reality? Reality had just caught up with her. Excuse me, ma'am, the deputy said, nodding toward the embedded spike strips in my driveway. We received a complaint about illegal road hazards on private property. Care to explain? Karen stiffened. Her eyes darted between me, the deputy, and Matt, my lawyer, who was already holding a stack of legal documents. And for the first time ever, she hesitated. This is a community road, she said, her voice less confident than before. The HOA has every right to— No, they don't. Matt cut her off, holding up the deed to my land. My client owns this land outright. According to county property records, this driveway is not under HOA jurisdiction. Installing spike strips here is not only illegal, it's considered reckless endangerment. That's a criminal offense. Karen's face lost all color. You can't be serious. I was just— The deputy sighed. Ma'am, I need you to remove those strips immediately, or we'll have to escalate this further. Karen's jaw clenched. I could see the gears turning in her head, trying to find a way out. But this time, there wasn't one. Failure to comply could result in criminal charges, Matt added. You're looking at hefty fines, a lawsuit, and potential arrest. Your call. Karen opened and closed her mouth, speechless for the first time since I met her. I almost felt bad. Almost. The humiliation of Queen Karen. Under the watchful eye of the deputy, Karen was forced to dig out the spike strips with her own hands. She was fuming, red-faced, sweaty, absolutely humiliated. Every neighbor within eyesight had come out to watch, whispering to one another as the woman who had acted like she owned the entire neighborhood was now undoing her own mess. And me? I stood back, arms crossed, enjoying every second. Karen tries one last power move. But Karen wasn't done scheming. Later that evening, as I sat on my porch enjoying a well-earned beer, I saw her storming down the street, clipboard in hand, knocking on doors. She was gathering signatures. I sighed, shaking my head. I already knew what was coming. And sure enough, the very next morning, an emergency HOA meeting was called. The meeting hall was packed. Karen stood at the front, eyes burning with fury, flipping through stacks of paper. She slammed them down on the podium. This man is a threat to our community, she declared, pointing a dramatic finger at me. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. He has no respect for our rules, no respect for the values that keep this neighborhood safe and orderly. He's bringing in lawyers and law enforcement to bully us. If we allow this, what's next? Chaos? Lawlessness? Someone cleared their throat. It was the HOA president. Karen, he said slowly, rubbing his temples, are you seriously suggesting that you are the victim here? After illegally installing spike strips on someone's driveway? Karen's face twitched. It was necessary to enforce community standards, she insisted. We cannot allow outsiders. Outsiders? A resident in the crowd frowned. He lives here, a few people murmured in agreement. The HOA president sighed. Karen, you're abusing your power, and quite frankly, we're tired of it. Karen looked around expecting support, but all she got were blank stares. That's when she realized she had lost. By the end of the meeting, Karen was stripped of her HOA authority. No more clipboard, no more fines, no more community votes. She was done. The final meltdown. But Karen doesn't go down without a fight. That night I heard shouting outside. I flicked on my porch light, stepping out, to see Karen standing in the middle of the street yelling at my neighbors. She was furious. You're all turning against me? After everything I've done for this community? You think this outsider belongs here? One of my neighbors, an older man named Frank, shook his head. Karen, you've made this place miserable for years. We're done. Karen's face twisted into something ugly. But then she spotted me, standing on my porch, and she snapped. She stormed toward my property, fists clenched. This isn't over. You think you can come in here and ruin everything? I'll make sure you regret it. I crossed my arms. You're trespassing, Karen. Walk away before you make things worse. She sneered. Oh, you haven't seen worse yet. And with that, she stormed off into the night. But I had a sinking feeling she wasn't bluffing. Because the next morning, I woke up to find my truck was missing. I blinked, thinking maybe I was seeing things. But no, the driveway was empty. The same driveway where I had parked it last night. I ran inside, checked my security cameras, and there it was, Karen, in the dead of night, standing beside a tow truck, smirking as my truck was hauled away. My jaw clenched. She had gone too far. I picked up my phone and dialed the sheriff directly. Hey, I need to report a stolen vehicle. I took a deep breath, and I know exactly who took it. Karen had gone too far. Sabotaging my driveway? That was one thing. Ignoring legal warnings? Petty but expected. But stealing my truck? She had just made the biggest mistake of her life. The moment I saw the security footage of Karen standing beside a tow truck, smirking as my vehicle was hauled away, I knew she thought she had won. But what she didn't realize? This wasn't just HOA drama anymore. This was Grand Theft Auto. We're sending a unit to you now, the sheriff's office said over the phone. Stay put. I didn't have to wait long. Within 15 minutes, a patrol car pulled up to my driveway. It was the same deputy from before, the one who had made Karen remove the spike strips. He stepped out, already looking tired. Let me guess, he sighed. Karen, I showed him the security footage. She had a tow truck take my truck in the middle of the night. The deputy frowned, watching the video closely. This is bad. She had no legal right to do this. I had a pretty good idea where she took it. There's a private impound lot about 5 miles from here, I said. It's not city-run. If she used her HOA connections, that's probably where they put it. The deputy nodded. All right, let's go get your truck back, and let's have a little talk with Karen while we're at it. The retrieval mission. We pulled up to the impound lot, and sure enough, there was my truck, parked behind a locked gate, right where I expected. A grizzled man in greasy coveralls stepped out of a small office, frowning as we approached. Something I can help you with? He grunted. The deputy nodded toward my truck. This truck was illegally towed from private property. We're here to get it back. The guy scratched his beard. HOA lady said it was an unauthorized vehicle. We just did the job. I stepped forward. Unauthorized according to who? I have legal proof that my driveway is private property and not under HOA jurisdiction. The man sighed, clearly annoyed. Look, I don't want any trouble. If you've got proof, I'll release the truck, but you'll have to pay the impound fee. The deputy crossed his arms. Absolutely not. That truck should never have been taken in the first place. If you want to avoid charges for participating in an illegal repossession, I suggest you waive the fee. The guy held up his hands. Fine, fine. Take it. Just keep that crazy woman away from me. With my truck back in my possession, there was only one thing left to do. Confront Karen. The arrest. The deputy and I made a direct stop at Karen's house. She answered the door with a self-satisfied smirk. But when she saw the deputy standing beside me, the color drained from her face. Karen, the deputy said, voice firm, we need to talk. She tried to play dumb. Oh? About what? I held up my phone, playing the security footage. Karen, standing beside the tow truck, watching as my vehicle was hauled away. She stared at the screen, her face frozen in horror. You stole my truck, Karen, I said. That's grand theft auto. Her eyes widened, and for the first time, she looked genuinely scared. It wasn't theft. It was a community enforcement action. The HOA rules clearly state. The deputy cut her off. The HOA has no authority over private property. You don't get to enforce anything. You committed a felony, and now you're going to pay for it. He stepped forward. Karen, you're under arrest for vehicle theft. Turn around. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. No, this is ridiculous. You can't do this. The deputy ignored her protests, pulling out a pair of handcuffs. You have the right to remain silent. The entire neighborhood had come out to watch. People whispered, some even recorded. Karen, the mighty HOA tyrant, the woman who had tormented this community for years, was being led to a police car like a common criminal. I crossed my arms, watching her meltdown with a satisfied grin. Told you this wasn't over, Karen. She thrashed as the deputy guided her toward the car. You'll regret this. I'll get a lawyer. I'll sue. I leaned against my truck. Good luck with that. I already have a lawyer, and he's a lot better than yours. The fallout Karen was taken into custody, and in the days that followed, the HOA scrambled to distance themselves from her. Official statements were made. We do not condone the actions of Ms. Karen. The HOA had no involvement in the illegal towing incident. We apologize for any distress caused. Blah, blah, blah. It didn't matter. Karen was gone, stripped of her HOA membership, hit with multiple charges, fined thousands in legal fees, completely humiliated, and most importantly, no longer a problem in my life. Lesson learned. Some people never learn. Karen believed that rules didn't apply to her, that she could bully her way through life using the HOA as a weapon, that she could steal, sabotage, and intimidate her neighbors into submission. But the law doesn't bend just because someone thinks they're in charge. She spent years enforcing rules on everyone else. And in the end, she was the one who got arrested. Because sometimes, karma doesn't just work fast. It works with handcuffs, a patrol car, and a very tired sheriff's deputy.